We are Rogue Media Sports.
A lot can happen between falling in love with a house online and owning it. Between imagining living there and breathing in your new home for the first time. Having an advocate who can help you navigate the complex world of financing, inspections, negotiating, analyzing the market, and talking through any anxieties that may pop up, that can make all the difference. That's what the expertise of a Realtor can do for you. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors and bound by a code of ethics, because that's who we are.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.
It will never be hot enough again for me to wear a tank top to a Cowboys.
I've actually seen pictures of that.
Somebody just tweeted it today.
That's like a netting. It was like a net type shirt.
It was
like
not a net type shirt.
It
was a Varney sunglass.
Yeah. Oh,
it was a full cotton T-shirt.
No,
it did not have eyelets or anything.
This is a see-through Hobie OP type shirt. It is Matt Mosley and Ed Werder and a very special Doomsday Podcast. The Doomsday Podcast has made its way out to Oxnard, California. I flew in this morning. I was on a 6 a.m. flight, found a good fare. Ed slept in, came in. Ed, I understand.
Did we both make it for practice at the same time?
We made it for practice. I was at the walkthrough, a very spirited walkthrough earlier today. Ed, I want to get straight to it. This afternoon practice, and now this was a team that had not been out there for a while. They played the game. They tried to kind of have a practice at Case Western University, I believe it was. And Ed, we'll hear from Stephen Jones on this. You had a chance to go over there and talk to Stephen, the Cowboys Vice President of Player Personnel. I just want to say this. For my first impressions of this camp, I was fascinated with a player that I know a lot of our listeners and subscribers are fascinated by, Jaylon Smith. Watching him react, watching his speed, and that was a big part of what we watched today. Right now, he appears to me to be sort of listed, or he's the second string middle linebacker. But he was impressive. He's going every other day. We weren't able, Ed, to pin anybody down on exactly when he's going to play in this preseason. We'll hear more about that. But before we hear from Stephen, what were your impressions of our first chance to really see Jaylon Smith in a situation like this?
Well, it's still clear that his left ankle and foot are still heavily taped, and that's because he's still wearing that AFO brace that protects him against that drop foot that he's experienced since he's had the nerve injury with the ACL tear. I did notice that he was going third in every drill with the linebackers. Sean Lee would go first, Anthony Hitchens would go second, and then Jaylon Smith would go third. In the one drill I was really focused on that was happening very near us on the sideline, they were starting from a position in the middle. They would run through a block on the left side, back to the middle, back to the right side, and then back to the middle and make a hit in each one of those locations. And it seemed to me that there was a noticeable double step he was taking before he changed directions. I don't know if he doesn't fully feel convinced that the foot's going to hold up, or it's just an adjustment he's had to make. But it looks, his footwork looked a little different than some of the other guys. But great burst, wants to be in every single drill, wanted to play in the Hall of Fame game the other night. And I came away with a very distinct impression in talking to Stephen Jones, and we're going to hear more of that interview later, that they think he's ahead of where they expected. And I think he's going to play real soon, if not this week, against the Rams.
All right, let's do that right now. Let's hear from Stephen Jones talking about just how badly Jaylon Smith is trying to get into these games.
What are the conversations about Jaylon this week and when he'd be ready to play in a game?
I think we're still, we're just seeing how he progresses. We don't no need to jump ahead and make a decision for whether it's this week or next week, whatever it may be. We'll just kind of see how he progresses this week, see how he responds. big thing about Jaylon so far is it seems to be better every time he goes out there. And he's more and more comfortable with it. And at the same time, if you left it up to him, he'd be going every play out there in the Hall of Fame game. So, we got to protect Jaylon at the end of the day from Jaylon. And he's going to be around here for many, many years to come. And we've got to handle this the right way for him.
Playing on the goal line the other day, though, that was a significant, when you're looking at hurdles to get back, that would be a major one, I assume.
A major one. And, he just keeps putting the practices together. And I think our staff, our medical staff, just done a great job of managing his situation and giving him the best chance to have success. Practice in and practice out, and then giving him a day off when it's appropriate. And then, as I said, we'll make a good decision when that time arrives as to which game when he starts to play in games.
Like I say, medically, the baseline. Have you had many discussions as a staff yet as, okay, the rust issue, medically, whenever we get thumbs up there, then we have to go, okay, how much does he need to play going into the season to be prepared to a certain level to go? Have you had those?
Well, I think his baseline is where he can play football. So now we just got to ease him into it because there's fatigue that's obviously when you don't have a muscle that's had nerves to it for as long as his did, then it's fatigue's easier, and so you got to build that up and over time and do it the right way so that we don't have any issues there, and then at the same time give him the reps that he's getting comfortable with. So I think his baseline health is good is at a point where he could play. It's just getting him in that football shape and doing things the right way. As I said, I think Jaylon's going to be around here for the next 10 years, and we don't want to do anything that's not taking care of Jaylon.
Is it hard to figure out the right thing to do because there's not really a protocol for this sort of thing?
No, we feel real comfortable the way it's coming. It's just watching him each week, each practice, make sure he's progressing, make sure he takes each step, that he doesn't have any setbacks, and then you give him a little more. And then the time will come where we decide, has he had enough, to put him in a game situation against the Rams, and we'll make that call later on in the week.
Stephen, what do you remember from a year ago? Dak kind of really burst onto the scene in that game, showed at least in a game setting what he could potentially do. What do you remember about kind of realizing, hey, this kid could be something?
Well, you just started watching it, and he started moving the team. I think he didn't throw an incomplete pass, till late in the second quarter, and I think it may have been a drop. And, you just were watching him, and you say, this guy's got he's putting what he's been doing on the practice field and his leadership skills, and you could see the team was responding to him and wanting to play for him. And you were just impressed that he, was putting series after series together. And then when the game was over, you kind of said, that's pretty nice work. Now, it's a preseason game. If you'll recall, I'm sure that was what we said. It's only preseason. We'll have to wait and see how he does in the next one and the next one. And then, of course, at the end of preseason, it was just preseason. We got to see how he does in a real game. But of course, he just kept putting them together. And obviously, when he got those live bullets, and that was an interesting situation. It wasn't your typical preseason game there in L.A. If I recall, I think there were 90,000+ people there, and it was rocked up pretty good. And I think both the Rams and we played our players quite a bit of time there in terms of the competitiveness of it, and I think the Rams were wanting to win that game, and we were having some fun with it too. So it was a unique situation. I think it was great for Dak to be in a situation like that.
And that was Stephen Jones talking about Jaylon Smith, and Ed. We didn't get to hear it there, but I know Stephen had something to say about Jerry Jones that, and you were out there with Jerry in Canton, and you were the Dick McCann Award winner. We're still very proud of you. But Stephen,
lasted this long. Yeah. Wow.
Stephen, I think by tomorrow
you'll be over it all together.
We'll be about done with it. But I know Stephen had a good line earlier this afternoon.
Yeah, I asked him. I said, "Hey, were you surprised to look out there and see that even though it was nice and cool, that Jerry decided not to wear his Hall of Fame jacket to the afternoon practice out here in Oxnard, or Oxnard as Jerry likes to call it?" And Stephen chuckled and said, we actually talked about all the attention that's been on Jerry in the past few days in Canton and all the speaking that he's done. And he's actually gotten to the point, believe it or not, where Jerry feels like he's said everything there is for Jerry ever to say. I suspect that will soon wear off, like the other thing we talked about.
Yeah.
But it was pretty remarkable that Jerry's to the point where Jerry doesn't want to talk about himself anymore, at least for the moment.
Yeah. I don't expect this to last in any meaningful way, but that was kind of fun. I do want to say real quick, and our buddy Frito, our fearless producer, Frito Nation Productions, of course, got to listen to this. You and I have been flying out here. We don't have time always to listen to ourselves on the various broadcasts across the country, Ed, that we're asked to be a part of. But big reaction today to our appearance on Pardon My Take. I want to thank Big Cat and you're laughing. Big Cat and PFT Commenter. They have names, but PFT Commenter, like, nobody actually knows his name. And I think I was able to confirm this with Frito earlier. There were people across the country that thought I called him Zach. And I think I was talking about Dak. That's not his name. I don't know the guy's name. I just know he has long hair and he's got sunglasses. But that was fun to be on.
And you just have sunglasses.
I just have sunglasses, do not have long hair. But that, I just think to a certain audience out there, and I would say they skew pretty young, us being on that podcast, like, there's a lot of excitement around the country today that we were on that.
It was palpable out here.
Yeah, that's right. They almost stopped down camp out here. Now,
I mean, I had no trouble at all even getting my credential just from the Doomsday representing the Doomsday Podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had experience, but it was the same for me as if I walked in representing the Dallas Morning News or ESPN.
I would hope
and
so.
I think it was probably largely because of that appearance we made yesterday.
I think that was a pretty big deal. Now,
was that a paid appearance?
We'll see. I doubt it. In fact,
I'm going to donate mine to Frito.
If it's a paid appearance, we would be the ones that pay. Yeah, I promise
I'm not
you
interested in that.
Okay, so other things that were going on with the defense. There's been some buzz out here about the second round pick. You would hope the second round pick. Now, sadly, the second round pick's getting much more buzz than the first round pick, Taco Charlton. We'll have a little more on him because I got into that with Rod Marinelli. But
you want to identify the second round pick?
Yeah, well, it's certainly what I was about to do, Ed, and I appreciate you.
Took way too long.
No. Ed, my gosh, you are not the one to be talking to somebody about, brevity. Chido Awuzie is how a lot of us like to say it. A guy that they thought could play some safety, play some cornerback. He's been playing mostly cornerback and making a lot of plays on the ball in some of those competition drills where there's some one-on-one. I just think he looks pretty advanced out there. So of the young players, of the Jordan Lewis, of the Chido Awuzie, I think this is a guy that's kind of stood out. Now, Ed, you and I had an opportunity to talk with he's a very intense man, Rod Marinelli, the Cowboys defensive coordinator.
It is the Doomsday Podcast. Ed Werder alongside Matt Mosley out here after camp practice, and Rod Marinelli, defensive coordinator, with us. Rod, after seeing that first action, it's a little earlier than most teams obviously get out there. How valuable was it to, even though you mostly played some of the younger guys, how valuable was that to you?
Valuable. Anytime you can play football, and these are the guys we're evaluating, looking at, teaching. Now, what you do is teach, game days test. So now we see how they tested, and so we got some information to work with and to clean it up.
How valuable is it when to have that extra game when you're going to be playing so many young guys, especially in the secondary?
It's big for us. A lot of things popped up we got to clean up, and nothing like repetition.
What's the plan this week for Jaylon Smith at this point?
It'd be too early for me to talk about it. It goes to the trainer, the head coach, upstairs. So we usually do that at the end of the week.
How much of him do you think you need to see in the preseason?
Hopefully we get some work out of him. Yeah. You'd like to see that. But he's doing good. He's been doing well.
To the naked eye, as Parcells used to call us, the layman, he looks like he's, moving well. But now, we've never seen a guy, I don't believe, play with that kind of device on, in the season and be that productive. Is this one of those special guys that, if anybody can pull it off, he's the one.
Yeah, that's what because he is his personality is positive, belief, can do. It's unbelievable. He was that way all last year, and he's been like that in camp every day. Just admire that.
When you watch him on the field, what is it about him that still impresses you?
Speed, instincts. He's gone, and he's smart.
If he's 80% of what he was before, how good a player is he?
Oh, really good. I believe it. And I just think he'll just get better and better and better as he goes.
So there have been thoughts, well, maybe by next spring it'll be all the way back. In your mind, and I know you're an optimistic person, I mean, are you expecting big-time production from him this coming season?
I expect each and every day get better. That's my whole thing for him. And he's been proven every day. And let's just see where it goes with him. Because he's working, he's smart, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And I just want him to get better daily.
Rod, in terms of the transformation that you're being required to make in the secondary because of the off-season losses, have you ever been through anything that extreme in any one position area in one off-season?
Oh, it's, maybe they're somewhere around, but it's a lot, but we like the young talent we have, and it's our job to fit them into a system, where they can succeed. Sometimes you may play a little bit more zone, even though they can play man. They're pretty good man guys. But that's where we are. And you got to be smart and play well.
Is it a dangerous combination to play young guys in the secondary when you don't have a proven pass rusher?
That's the hand you're dealt, and you play smart with it. Don't give up big plays. Stop the run. Get everybody hustling the ball. Find a way to get takeaways.
Go ahead. Specifically with Cheeto, as I think we call him these days, he's someone we were hearing. Ed and I just arrived out here, but was kind of popping early in camp, and obviously y'all thought a lot of him to take him there. What have you seen from him, and does he look like a guy who, hey, the lights aren't going to be too big, he's going to be ready to contribute right away?
We think so. That's why we have him here, and he's done a nice job all the way through camp so far. He's physical, which I really like. He can blitz, and he's got all the skills. Now it's about consistency, playing hard every down, hustling every down, playing our style of defense. So that's on us as coaches. We have to get that done.
What about Taco Charlton, your number one pick? What kind of impression has he made on you early?
He talent. I mean, very good, long, good talent. Now it's about being consistent each and every day. That's my goal for him. Consistent every single day.
What do you think he'll be early in his career in terms of, is he a Greg Ellis type of player? Or?
I couldn't say it yet. I mean, just as we grind our way through this thing.
Rod, we were talking with Byron Jones just a second ago, and he's hardly got any voice left. He's been out there barking so much. Have you seen him kind of take on that leadership role, getting on guys when he needs to?
Yeah.
How so?
Yeah. And it's not just his mouth, it's his action. That's all I want. His action on the field is good.
What do you hear from him that's different?
I just think there's when you really start to know what to do in this system, you really start playing fast. So that's the part, I think, when he's confident in what he's doing, when your personality comes out.
How do you temper, and I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what he asked over there, what Mike asked, but with a guy like Taco, who anytime you take a guy in the first round, there's big expectations. How do you make sure a guy like that who's having to go up against Jaylon Smith, one of the best in the league, doesn't get his confidence down a little bit in some of these practices?
I think it's important to work on your skill. You work on your skill, let it go, get down and do it again, because that's the way the league is, down in and down out. And it's good for him to do that. And then you quit trying to do some things just don't work yet. Go back to some basic things and make that work.
What gives you the most hope about him? Obviously, y'all thought a lot of him at Michigan, but what is it that to you?
He's got really good length. He's long. He's athletic, very athletic. And now it's just putting it all together each and every down.
Does sometimes the devil music that they play out here, does it bother you or anything?
I don't even hear it. I just, it's elevator music now. I don't listen.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like elevator music. But,
well, it all is the same to me.
Who's your favorite artist?
Don't have well, who's ever on the radio at that time.
Oh, okay.
And that was Rod Marinelli, and I apologize. I kind of led Rod down some sort of road he didn't want to go to, talking about music, and it was very obvious Rod didn't have a lot of favorite music and has no time for any nonsense like that. Now, Ed, on the offensive side of the ball, we obviously wanted to come out here and take a look at Dak Prescott, everything you would expect. And of course, as we come to you this evening, this was Monday afternoon's practice. There was one particular throw that he made sort of back across the field to Jason Witten. That one, Ed, stood out to me because he put a lot of juice on it. I'd say it's about 20, 25 yards downfield. Witten made a real nice catch on it, reached out and kind of fingertipped it. But I think we're going to see a Dak Prescott. Now, this is, and David Moore in the Morning News wrote a little bit about this. I think the interception totals are going to go up.
They have to.
Yeah, they do. But I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world, because I do think, and I think he'll still protect the ball, but he's going to take some more shots this season. And I think part of that just comes with confidence.
I think it's going to be, interesting to see whether he can continue to be as mindful as he seems to be about making protecting the ball his first priority, and whether he can achieve the necessary balance to make enough big plays while keeping that mindset and not taking too much. Alex Smith is a guy who has a similar skill set. He's a good athlete. He can run. He's a guy who has learned really to prize the football and not turn it over and not put it in jeopardy, almost to an extreme. I know in talking to some of the coaches in Kansas City, he actually frustrated them because there were opportunities to take shots down the field and he wouldn't do it. And I think that's something that will bear watching as Dak goes into what's a very important second year. And it could be a real challenge right from the start, depending on what happens with Zeke Elliott and whether he's able to play in these early games, especially week one. Imagine if they have to play without Zeke Elliott in that game, given the Giants caused Dak more problems last year than any other team in football that he went up against.
Yeah, that's an interesting point about the Giants and that first matchup or that first game of the season. I think, Ed, that one of the things that I think of when I watch Dak and watch his demeanor and how he carries himself, I can't help but think of Russell Wilson fairly early or very early in his career, not because they are that similar. I mean, they're both athletic quarterbacks, but it's more my sense. And again, I'm spitballing this after one practice this year, but having sort of watched this and then watched some of what he did in the offseason, if I had to say right now, Ed, it used to be Sean Lee and DeMarco Murray would really set the tone in these practices. And then, of course, Witten and Romo. I would say outside of maybe Jason Witten, there is no one out here. Like, I already look over at number 4 and sort of have this sense of this guy's in charge. And I think it's pretty remarkable.
Well, I don't even think Witten surpasses him in that regard. I think what he did last year in a situation which was as big a calamity as a team ever faces, losing its starting quarterback at the time that they did, and knowing they were going to play an extensive number of games with a rookie at quarterback, his ability to deliver and win games at Green Bay, for example, against Aaron Rodgers and against Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. And then even in the playoff game, he brought them back. He went toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers again in that game. This is his team. It's very clear that this is his team. And that's one of the reasons I think Tony Romo was sort of forced to retire.
With that in mind, we talked to a guy, and I laugh about this, and I think sometimes he's almost embarrassed when I write about this. I've written extensively about this because I knew and have talked to the Cowboys quarterback's coach, Wade Wilson, that Wade, even though the Cowboys did try to, as you'll point out, Ed, in this interview, Paxton Lynch, Connor Cook out of Michigan State, they looked at these other quarterbacks. Wade Wilson always was in love with Dak Prescott. Now, when a quarterback takes off like this, you'll hear scouts and coaches across the league, I loved him. I love Dak Prescott. Wade Wilson really did. In fact, people don't know this. After Dak had his DUI incident leading up to the draft, which was later tossed out, but it was still something the Cowboys had to look into. almost right after that, Wade Wilson showed up on campus and spent time with him. And really,
I think he met him 4 different times.
Yeah.
Evaluation process.
And so he really thought the world of him. And so that's what we did. We caught up with Wade Wilson because he's had a front row view, and he sort of caught us up on everything that has transpired over the past year in the development of Dak Prescott.
Wade Wilson, Cowboys quarterbacks coach for many years, joining the Doomsday Podcast. And Wade, as you enter year 2, I mean, it is pretty amazing to think where everything was at this point last year, and even this is probably about the time when Kellen got hurt, right? and before the Tony situation occurred. I mean, it's hard to believe this much has transpired. Your guy that we thought was going to be the quarterback for the next 3 years isn't going to be in the booth as the number 1 analyst for CBS, and here you are with Dak Prescott. And, God willing, I mean, you have to feel pretty good about that. And it's just hard to think back all those months ago to this time last year and think this is where you'd be now.
Yeah, it's really kind of surreal, everything that's transpired in the 12-month period, because Dak and I were talking about that yesterday. Saw Tony at the Hall of Fame game, and, to think that he got hurt, Kellen got hurt. We talked about making a trade or signing another veteran quarterback, and then it's like the decision was made, let's go with the young guys. And Kellen took the reins and never gave him back, and he's got nothing but better. And he's come into this training camp this year, with more hungry than ever, and feels a lot more comfortable. And the team responds to him, so it's been a good thing for our team. Certainly wish Tony was still around and doing that, but Dak has taken the reins and never gotten back.
Yeah, you called Dak Kellen a minute ago, so I'll clarify. That's okay. Kellen got hurt. No. And Ed Werder joining us now, the Doomsday Podcast.
Stop for you. I'm surprised that Wade would stop for you.
I know. You're shocked. Well, Wade Wilson and I go way back. Maybe not as far as back as you go. Okay, so where he is right now, obviously, in a remarkable rookie season, where have you seen him grow the most in his game? I mean, there's got to be an obvious sort of just leadership part of it that just comes with having done this now for a year, and so he has a different way about him, I would think, with his teammates. Is that the biggest area of? What have you seen? Just even in the past few months from Dak.
I think there's several areas. The leadership is. He had the traits coming in, but the fact that the way he's responded in the offseason and the players have responded to him has been a huge leap. The other thing is just because of his recognition of things, and he didn't have a whole lot of OTAs last year. He's had a full year of off-season preparation and training camp now, so he's responding to things a lot quicker, a lot more instinctive, and it's he's not thinking near as much, he's reacting.
A lot of people think that if a quarterback's really going to be a great quarterback over time, year 2 is really big in terms of making that statement and proving yourself in that regard. Do you ascribe to that theory?
I do. I actually do. There haven't been too many quarterbacks play as well as he did his rookie year, but I still think there's room for improvement. He thinks there's room for improvement, and that's the main thing. There's no obstacle where he thinks that he's got it. He's a hard worker and wants to go out and prove it every day in practice and in every game. So I would anticipate even elevating his game in year 2 for sure.
When you think about this week's opponent, the Rams, do you think at all last year what happened, that was kind of the game where he demonstrated a capacity not everybody knew he had in sort of a unique situation in a preseason game because the Rams were playing at home for the first time. There were 90,000 people there, and he gave you something. He showed himself.
There's no question he did. And, we talked about that today. Actually, we were talking about it out here on the field. And, just the fact that he went out and played with such poise, threw the ball extremely accurately, and, started winning over the guys at that point. And, we really felt like we had something to build on. And, there were questions coming out of college about can he be a consistently accurate thrower down the field. And, he started that game against the Rams and started proving everybody wrong.
What do you think the next, a lot of people will go, well, he's an athletic guy. Will he take off and maybe run a little bit more this season? But the other thing that, it's not a criticism, it's just, is he going to be able to push the ball down the field more? You've seen guys in their development. Where is he in that regard, in being able to? Because obviously y'all did a lot to help him, and he played great. Right. But where do you Where do you think he is in that, and maybe being able to take some more shots?
Well, I don't want him to fall into the traps. You hear that stuff in the media. Should he throw the ball down the field a little bit more? But I mean, if we're making good decisions, getting the ball thrown accurately underneath, if shots are presented to us, we certainly want to take them. And we've got weapons to take advantage of that. But if they're not there, we're not turning the ball over. We're completing the balls to Beasley, to the backs, to Witten underneath. And, as long as he's making good decisions and not turning the ball over, I have no criticism of that at all.
He only had 4 interceptions last year as a rookie.
Exactly.
That's the stat that really stands out. I mean,
No
he's
doubt.
a guy who values the ball. How unusual is that, and how do you balance the risk-reward part of it?
Well, I mean, there again, I think it's where the growth comes in the second year. Can you take a few more shots? Possibly. But if it's gray, make good decisions and, even be willing to throw the ball away, to not turn the ball over, because that's, to us, that's the key stat, is taking care of the ball. And if he'll do that, we'll play to our strengths. We have a good running game. We've got great skilled people. Just use all of your weapons. And like I said, if they present a shot down the field, let's take it. But if not, then find something underneath.
You liked this quarterback room last year, and Tony was trying to rehab and get back and probably wasn't always available, but I know Sanchez, you just enjoyed, it seemed like, from us talking, being around that group of quarterbacks. You got Luke over here, McCown, good East Texas kid, who you've brought in. Is that, do you let a guy like Kellen knows the offense really well? He and Scott have the background. How does that play out? These are two sort of veteran backups. This guy's more of a veteran, Luke. Right. How do you think something like that will play out? Because or do they compete, or you already know quite a bit about these guys?
Right. Well, I think that's the whole thing about the NFL. Everybody competes, and it doesn't matter if you've been in the league, 14 years or 2 years or whatever it is. And then we got Cooper Rush in his rookie year, showed some flashes the other night as well. So I think it'll bear itself out over the preseason. But, yeah, definitely it's all about competition.
You realize you had a nice NFL quarterback career. You had a big role in Tony's development. I guess did you Cutler early on? No.
Rex Grossman.
You had Grossman. But you went to Super Bowl with Rex Grossman. So we have to bring that up. But you do realize that you're probably, if Dak keeps this up, that might be your cornerstone of your career. I continue to tout you as the guy who stood on the table for Dak Prescott. Am I overstating this?
I think you're overstating it a little bit. No doubt about it. But, there's personnel people and ownership that make those decisions and all that. And then I hope that I've made an impact on him, but I think that Scott Linehan's done a fantastic job playing to his strengths and adapting the offense to his strengths. So I'll just kind of leave it right there.
When you guys were trying to trade up for Paxton Lynch in the first round and Connor Cook in the third round and didn't get either one of those guys, did you still feel like we got a guy that can still be our future at quarterback if Dak is still on the board?
In all honesty, I loved everything about Dak. His intangibles, his leadership. Everybody at Mississippi State raved about him. I just wasn't sure he could be consistently accurate this quickly to come out and play in his rookie year. I didn't know that he could be a pocket passer and throw the ball as accurately as he did in year one.
When Romo went down, what did you think?
Well, I was like everybody else. I was, kind of devastated, and we had conversations. Are we going to bring a veteran in? And then it's like, no, let's go with the young guys. And from that moment, even in the Seattle game, and then every practice after that, Dak started winning the guys over and showing that he had the poise, he had the mental makeup, the football intelligence that he could go out and play quarterback in this league.
There's a segment of the population that still predicts that if anything happens to Dak, then like we saw Jay Cutler come out of the booth to save the Dolphins, that Romo would come back for the Cowboys. Do you see that as a possibility?
I don't know. I really don't think so at this point. At one point, I thought there's a possibility, but I think that decision will lie way above my head. But I think Tony, having talked to him a little bit this past weekend at the Hall of Fame game, he's pretty entrenched in what he's doing and really enjoying it.
Did you see him in that little high school press box looking thing up there practicing?
I did. I saw him. I was right 2 doors down from him, so it was good. But he looked good and seemed happy, and I think that he's happy with his decision and it's not going to look back.
Wade, thank you. And I know this is something you've always thought about, is being on the Doomsday Podcast, and this has to be a pretty big moment in your career.
It is. It's like go to the Hall of Fame and talk to you guys on a couple of days later. It's like
it's almost too much.
It is.
Bucket list.
And some good stuff there and fun stuff with Wade Wilson. who has had such a big role in Dak Prescott's success. And as we get ready to bid you farewell for our first evening out here, and Ed, I've been reading and hearing about this heat wave that has hit the West Coast. I guess it has skipped Ventura County in Oxnard. It was I guess it was warmish at times out there. I felt fine. And generally we come out here and we call home and rub it in everybody's face. But I think in Dallas it's actually in the 80s. So I don't think it's
still not as nice as it is here. I got a sweatshirt on right now.
You do. It's a good looking. What is that? What brand is that?
It's Rag and Bone.
Yeah,
it's kind of my casual collection. It's Rag and Bone. My nice suits are primarily Xenia. I wear to games, but I do like the Rag and Bone look. And Travis Matthew, favorite of both of ours, I think.
Yeah, I think I turned you on to Travis Matthew. I moved on to a fuller cut shirt because of my
I moved
girth.
on to the Peloton to make sure I could still fit Travis Matthew.
Peter Millar, if you're listening to this podcast, we've given several sponsors. Man, I can't even say it yet, but one of the big time sort of fantasy groups out there is going to join us, and I would be remiss.
Is it fantasy football or some other
fantasy football? Okay. They're coming on board as a sponsor, and so I'm excited. I can't say it yet. Patreon. We're going to have more as the week goes on exactly how you can get involved and what we're going to give you, sort of an insider status. Patreon. Remember to go to patreon.com/Doomsday, and that's where you'll get your insider status as we will be uploading some videos and some special insight and just a little different level of access. And we'll be doing that while we're out here, and really appreciate the good folks at Patreon. And I want to say goodnight to everybody out here from Oxnard. It's been a wonderful time, and these next 2 days, we're going to be coming at you. Tomorrow, I don't want to put too much pressure on us, Ed. Here's all I'll promise. Either Dak Prescott one-on-one or Dez. That is my promise to
the only other time that you boasted like this was when you said you were going to get Jaylon Smith, and somehow you actually pulled that off.
Yes. Yeah. And
so at worst, you'll be 1 for 2 or 1 for 3, depending on whether you count tomorrow's attempts as a singular effort to get those two guys or it's two separate.
Yeah. I do have to say this. It is strange. I know it's got to be strange for you. We're used to being sort of full-fledged, normal media members. The podcast thing is a little bit of a new world. You know what? I kind of like it. I think what's funny is some of these folks out here have come up to me and they are big time into the Doomsday. Now, some of them are like, oh gosh, guys. I mean, they're almost like, is everything okay? Do we need to take out a dinner tonight? But I'm pleased.
Well, I've not yet had a meal on the Doomsday expense report yet, so I'm curious to see how I might answer that same question tomorrow.
I'm credentialed through the morning news, and an editor texted me earlier today and said, what is your plan for the week? And I just thought, well, my plan is to do podcasts. But maybe, I love the morning news, and I'll be chatting and doing some of those things. Hey, thanks to Frito Nation Productions, Mark Frito Friedman. Wish he was with us, but he's back there in Dallas doing wonderful work. And Ed,
I had a weird moment when we were leaving the field because ESPN was set up out here, and Todd Archer had the sport coat on and was getting ready to go on the air. It was just it was nostalgic and ironic and odd and seemingly wrong that I would just walk right by.
Yeah, that was odd and a little awkward. But here's what I told myself, and I think you should tell yourself. You had gotten, by the time you left ESPN, I'm going to start saying that, you just said, to hell with you. I want to make my full salary for about 2.5 years and just, walk away. You had sort of outgrown all that. You were like a studio guy. So I don't want you to be out here like, oh, God, look at Todd. Todd was wearing shorts, for God's sakes.
I only did that once in my TV life, and it was at a Cowboys training camp in Wichita Falls, and so many people saw me, and I assumed they thought that was the way I dressed all the time. And so I did not want that to be the lingering image of me at work, so I have never done it again. It's like the tank top I wore one time. in front of Jimmy Johnson. It's never been that hot again. It will never be hot enough again for me to wear a tank top to a Cowboys.
I've actually seen pictures of that.
Somebody just tweeted it today.
That's like a netting. It was like a net type shirt.
It was
like
not a net type shirt.
It
was a Varney sunglass.
Yeah. Oh,
it was a full cotton T-shirt.
No,
it did not have eyelets or anything.
This is a see-through OP type shirt. Good night, everybody, from Oxnard.
Is this house a good price compared to others in the area? Are prices going up or down? If I don't make an offer right this very moment, will I miss my chance? These are just some of the questions a home buyer might ask. And these are the sorts of questions an agent who is a Realtor can help answer. Because Realtors have the expertise, data, and access to specialty training to help you navigate the process of buying a home. They provide support, guidance, and have your back every step of the way. That's what Realtors do, because that's who we are. Realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors.
You haven't heard about the McCrispy yet? Well, then, you probably haven't heard the sweet silence after the first crispy bite either. Go try it for yourself to hear the best nut sound you've ever heard.